In this Monster Hunter Wilds video, we're going to be taking a look at the heavy bowgun, which is one of the 3 ranged weapons of the game. We're going to be talking about the moves, how to use the heavy bowgun, and we're also going to be talking about some of the changes to the heavy bowgun that have come in Monster Hunter Wilds. So whether you're a new player looking to use this weapon or a returning player looking what's different, you should get something out of this video. The heavy bowgun is the artillery weapon of the Monster Hunter franchise. The weapon specializes in dealing high damage from range. The heavy bowgun deals more damage, breaks more parts, and stuns monsters more easily with its powerful shots versus the light bowgun, sacrificing the agility and versatility of the light bowgun for pure firepower. If you're looking for the most powerful ranged weapon in the game, then the heavy bowgun is for you. Just like the light bowgun, there are no combos with the heavy bowgun in this game, so we won't go into them, and instead the range of your attacks, the pattern of your shots, things like that are determined by the ammo that you're using. And before we get into some of the moves and changes of the heavy bowgun, let's talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between the light bowgun and heavy bowgun to sort of help you make a better decision about which one is right for you. So talking a little bit about mobility first, the light bowgun is much more agile than the heavy bowgun. So if you like being a mobile ranged weapon user, the light bowgun might be a better choice for you than the heavy bowgun because it's a bit slower in terms of movement. In terms of effective range, light bowgun is a close to mid-range weapon, while the heavy bowgun is more of a mid to long-range weapon and isn't always very effective at close range. So if you like playing at longer ranges, you might like the heavy bowgun. Defensively, light bowgunners are going to rely on dodges and positioning to avoid damage, whereas the heavy bowgun users have an auto guard mechanic that can protect them from damage, and they can also perform perfect guards and do a new offset attack that can stagger monsters to prevent monsters from hitting them if they time their shots correctly. So defensively, it's more about, do you want to try and dodge attacks or do you want to try and tank them? When it comes to customization, light bowguns have 2 mod slots and 1 special ammo slot, where heavy bowguns have 2 mod slots and 2 special ammo slots. The heavy bowgun has a little bit of an edge here, but just a little bit. When it comes to standard mode, light bowguns have a fixed standard mode for all light bowguns, whereas there is a variable and standard mode for heavy bowguns that can be upgraded using mod slots, meaning you can be more effective using your normal piercing and spread shot rounds with one heavy bowgun versus another if you upgrade it, depending on which heavy bowgun you're using. Base ammo types both have the same types of base ammo, being normal, spread, and pierce. For special ammo types, both light and heavy bowguns have different special ammo they can use that's determined by the light and heavy bowguns that you're using, so this is about the same roughly between these 2 types. And lastly, the alternate fire modes these weapons have. The light bowgun has rapid fire mode, allowing you to fire rapidly, while the heavy bowgun has ignition mode, which can do a variety of different things. One of them is also firing rapidly, so you have more options in terms of things you can do with the heavy bowgun for alternate fire modes than the light bowgun. So getting into the changes and moveset of the heavy bowgun in Monster Hunter Wilds, the changes to the heavy bowgun will make you feel a lot more slow, like a lumbering tank rather than a stationary turret, as it's received a lot of changes. The mod system for the bowguns received some changes compared to previous entries, and there are now 2 customizable categories for each bowgun: mods and special ammo slots. The heavy bowgun will have 2 slots for mods and 2 slots for special ammo. The first mod slot of a heavy bowgun allows you to increase one ammo type's capacity via magazines, normal, pierce, spread, or elemental, or increase the effectiveness of one of these ammo types via powders, depending on which heavy bowgun you're using. Some heavy bowguns will have magazines and some have powders, so you'll need to check at the smithy to verify after you craft a heavy bowgun, or you can look on the wiki before you craft it. The second mod slot of a heavy bowgun works similarly, with some heavy bowguns offering magazines and others offering powders. However, this mod slot will also always have an ignition mod and either ignition mode upgrade or standard mode upgrade to choose from as well. Standard mode upgrade will increase the damage with your normal, spread, and pierce ammo, while ignition mode upgrade will increase your effectiveness when in ignition mode, and the ignition mod increases the speed the ignition gauge fills. Note that some heavy bowguns are neutral and are not more effective with normal or ignition modes, while others might be better with ignition mode or standard mode, and you can see this in the in-game menu. For the special ammo options, heavy bowgun users can choose between the Wyvern Heart Ignition and Wyvern Piercer Ignition for its first special ammo. For the second special ammo, you can choose between the defensive Wyvern Counter Ignition or the more offensive Wyvern Blast Ignition. The heavy bowgun received a new addition in Monster Hunter Wilds called Ignition Mode. You can enter this by pressing B on Xbox or circle on PlayStation. Going into Ignition Mode allows you to access 2 different firing types, and using these shots will drain the gauge, and you'll need to switch back into normal mode when the gauge is empty. The gauge will refill back normally over time or when you land your shots on a monster. The 2 firing modes available in Ignition mode will be specific to the special ammo you've chosen for your heavy bowgun, and you can mix and match these to suit your playstyle. The Wyvern Hard Ignition turns your heavy bowgun into a literal heavy machine gun where you can hold down right trigger R2 to fire continuously until the meter is drained. This firing mode will deal more damage the longer you fire and is excellent at creating wounds on monsters. The Wyvern Piercer Ignition shoots a slow-moving single bullet that pierces through the monster for a time and will get stronger as it goes, increasing the damage, and the more it passes through the monster. This shot will consume about 1/5 of the ignition gauge and is especially useful against large monsters which have more length for the bullet to pass through. The Wyvern Counter is an entirely new move added to the heavy bowgun. What this move does is it will attach a device to the barrel of your bowgun and begin charging it, and when detonated, it'll deal a massive amount of damage that will build up the new offset status on a monster. It can also be charged to do more damage, but the move will go off by itself after a certain amount of time, which is relatively long. This move is an amazing defensive option for the heavy bowgun, but it has a fairly long startup time, making it difficult to land in time when you're just learning this weapon. Learning the moves of the monsters and becoming familiar with them will help you in landing the counter consistently and toppling monsters. Offset is a new type of attack that was added in Monster Hunter Wilds. These attacks fill an invisible offset meter on the monster much like a status effect and will topple the monster when you trigger the effect. The Wyvern Blast is the other option available in the second slot for special ammo. When you fire off this attack, which is performed by Y on Xbox or triangle while in ignition mode, you will kneel down similar to the counter, but you won't have to hold the inputs. You'll fire off 2 cluster grenades that split off into 3 small grenades each upon pressing the button again. This is a mid-range attack that covers a wide area and would deal considerable damage if all 6 of the grenades hit the target. This is a purely offensive option and will take away your ability to deal offset damage using the heavy bowgun, because you can only do that with the Wyvern counter. Another great addition to the heavy bowgun in Monster Hunter Wilds is the fact that they now have built-in shields letting you defend against monsters' attacks. What's even more amazing is that the heavy bowgun has an auto guard feature that will let you guard an incoming attack as long as you're not in the middle of an animation. It's important to note, though, that you cannot trigger a perfect guard with the auto guard, so you'll have to do that manually. By manually guarding, pressing Y plus B on Xbox or triangle plus circle on PlayStation, you can perform a perfect guard by timing the guard just before the monster hits you. Guarding enough attacks will trigger the new Power Clash mechanic in Monster Hunter Wilds, and winning the clash will let you end with a final powerful shot. The heavy bowgun has also benefited immensely from the changes made to the ammo system in Monster Hunter Wilds. Even though there are no new ammo types added to the game, some of the ammo now functions differently when compared to previous games in the franchise. The heavy bowgun shares the changes to ammo with the light bowgun, with the normal ammo now being the rapid-fire variant from previous iterations, which is completely new for the heavy bowgun, and both the spread and piercing shots now have unlimited ammo and don't need to be crafted. These changes mean that you'll be spending fewer resources to craft those specific ammo types. The ammo level has also been moved to bowguns specifically, with each bowgun determining what level a particular type of ammo will be. Note that the higher level an ammo is, the more effective it will be. Also, recovery ammo and demon ammo have also been changed into a grenade-like shot that sticks on impact in an area of effect, making it much easier to use to buff teammates. The focus blast for the heavy bowgun is known as the Wyvern Howl, and it will fire a missile that will stick in the monster before blowing up, similar to sticky ammo, if you hit a wound with the shot. Even though there is no special riding attacks with the Sacred for the heavy bowgun, it is special that you can use all the ammo types while you're mounted and attack the monster for even more mobility, although you cannot use the ignition mode while you're mounted. Final tips. Although the heavy bowgun lacks the mobility of its lighter cousin, the added defensive options make the weapon feel much better to use and provides much needed improvements to the flow of combat when using it. Knowing how long the reload time is for each of the different types of ammo will also help you, as different ammo have different reload times, with the longer ones keeping you stuck in animations longer. Even with these options, though, proper positioning is still crucial, and the heavy bowgun user will still do their best at range from the monster, as both its defensive options take some time to set up and are very difficult to use reactively in close range. Different special ammo for the ignition mode offers different playstyles for the heavy bowgun between a more offensive or defensive approach. It is important to use the appropriate option for the playstyle you're going for, as well as for the monster you're hunting. For secondary weapons, slotting a second heavy bowgun is not a bad idea, particularly if they have different levels of ammo types and different alternate fire modes with different ignitions, so that you can switch between these modes from your Sacred without having to go back to town. However, another good choice if you want to stay ranged but you want a little bit more mobility in between your shots is the light bowgun, because you can still play aggressively with it, but you'll just be able to move around a little bit more. So that wraps up our heavy bowgun guide for Monster Hunter Wilds. I hope you guys learned something and got something out of this, whether you're a new player or returning veteran to the franchise. And as always, if you have other tips for heavy bowgun users out there, maybe something I forgot to mention in the video, or if you have questions about the heavy bowgun, something I didn't answer for you in this video, please leave them in the comments below, and I will try and answer them as soon as I can.